magnificent quid, just like Chaplain Stevens. Don't laugh. It was very handsome. His name was Owen, actually. It's a true story. So we were going to the Chaplain Stevens concert. Big moment. Big chance to colour my hair. So I did it myself. You put the dye and then you shampoo it through, because the instructions say shampoo it through. And I shampoo like this, and then I wash it out. So I'm shampooing the red dye, bright red I might add, because I should have been a redhead, so my family didn't get the prominent gene. And then when I washed it all out, I had this bright red patch here. That's as far as it stayed. So the ends were still brown. It's embarrassing. I go to school like that, and I remember walking past the classroom, seeing this bright red reflection, looking and saying, "What the heck's that?" Oh, it's me. We live and we learn.
All right, now she's broken the ice. Somebody else. Can I pick people? Oh, Beck.
I had a head I want to tell it's boring. Come back, come back.
Fine, let's see. Who else do I know? Karen. Yeah. I said it right? Good. I'm so bad with names. This is a miracle. You can tell I'm your brother.
I will not.
Tell me something he's done.
Right, I know. No. What about peer pressuring other people? This is a circle of trust. This is his brother. And when he was younger, he used to be really annoying. And in our neighborhood, we had a whole set of friends, and so he was the easiest to pick on. And so they would routinely make fun of him. And he would go crying. And then I would have to be like, "Okay, guys, and now we have to go and say sorry to Kelvin." And so they would all go and say, "Sorry, Kelvin, sorry, Kelvin, sorry, Kelvin." And then you feel better.
Calvin, are you the youngest?
Yes, I am.
See, brother, I feel your pain.
Yeah. And she always started it as well.
I have a sister just like that. Well, you know, as we talk, we just kind of scratch the surface on the rather kingdom of Christ, you know, following Jesus and the way he lives. We live in a time of great complexity. Great complexity. I was reading that in the last 20 years, knowledge has increased equivalent to all of history before that. Think of that. All of the knowledge of thousands of years before that, we've gained that much more knowledge, that same size body of knowledge in the last 20 years. When you go to places to eat, when you go for gelato or whatever, wherever you go, there's not one or two things. There's dozens of things you can choose, which is horrible for me because I'll go to a restaurant and see about 4 or 5 things I want on the menu. I can't eat all of them, but I have, and they say, "What do you want?" Life is about choices, and everything becomes complex. And when things become so complex, we start to shut down. We can't handle it. Today we went over to Fremantle to the markets. And it was all right for a while, and then all the people, you know, have you been there? Did I say it right? And you go in that big building, and there's just people everywhere. And for a while, it's fun. And after a while, I shut down. It's like, I have to get out. But with Jesus, there's some simple things. It's not that God or Christ are simplistic, but there's some simple things that he leads us to. It's not complex. He says, "Follow me." So we've looked at some things. Rather than judge or condemn, Jesus came to save and restore. Are we doing that in our relationships? Rather than build up barriers and walls, Jesus tore them down. Are we doing that in our relationships? Rather than always seeking things for ourselves and climbing on top and making sure we're taken care of first, Jesus did the opposite and served in fulfilling other people and fulfilled him. Are we doing the same thing? So as we finish up in the short weekend, there's so much more we can talk about. But I thought this might be an important one to end with. Jesus, rather than, I'm not saying it right, rather than be conformed, Jesus transformed. Well, let's take a moment to pray. Lord, help us to see clearly your will, your way, and your calling. And to know deeply that it's not about what we can do, it's about what you've done and will do in us. And may these words be your words this evening, I pray in your name. Amen. So, there's more. We've all done things. Thank you for the few brave ones who taught. I mean, I was going to show photos. I showed some people at least one photo. And I thought maybe it's better or not. Maybe you'll invite me back if you don't know what I was. But I have a picture where I'm wearing platform shoes. Anybody know what platform shoes are? How do you know all that?
Used to wear them.
No, there's no goldfish in them. Nobody wore those with goldfish. I'm 6'3" and I have platform shoes on, and long belt-on pants, a long coat. My hair's all afroed out, and I have my beard. It's like, yeah. And my kids laugh and laugh when they see my pictures with bell bottoms, because you wore them tight. You couldn't even move to your knees, and all of a sudden, boom, they got big. And they go and just cover your shoes. They had to just cover part of your shoes. And I know you guys do weird things too, like red hair right in the middle. So what is conformity? Let me talk to you a minute about conformity. Conformity is a type of social influence involving a change in belief or behavior in order to fit in with a group. And this change is in response to real group pressure or imagined group pressure involving social expectations. Conformity can also be defined as yielding up essentials of who you are to group pressures for the purpose of being accepted as one of the group. And the reality of our lives is that from the moment we're born, we're pressured to conform in some kind of way. And the old saying is true, by beholding, we become changed. What we focus on, we become. So a little bit of my story. Is it right to talk sitting down, or should I stand up?
No, sit down.
Okay. All right. So my story, I've also found out working at Loma with so many different denominations of people that this is a unique thing to Adventism. I've heard no other group say this, but we'll say, oh, I'm a third-generation Adventist. Do you do that? I do it. And somebody asked me about that. Why do you say that? It's like, do we inherit it? And then, boy, when someone slams down, I'm a sixth generation. And I was like, well, either you're holy or your family replicates very quickly. So my pedigree is I'm just a third generation Adventist, but both my grandfathers were Adventist pastors, so a little bit of I was a lifer in church. That means from cradle roll all the way up. Went through all of our church schools until I was partway through college. And then I went to our public universities for a while in the States. And the reason I'm telling you this is that we can grow up within a system and we can conform to a system and not know that we're doing it with conformity. Sometimes our Adventism is a cultural thing with us. We're cultural Christians. We've grown up with it, we're used to it, but we never meet Jesus Christ. Or what's worse happens is we think we've met him, and we think we know him, and we don't really. We don't really. This could be a long story, but I said, who's my manager? Who's managing me? What time do I need to stop out? No, don't do that. Tell me. Seriously.
20 minutes.
Okay, make me stop here. And I know you're not going to believe this, but I was a shy person when I was a little child in what we call elementary school. And when I was graduating into what we call high school, I had an epiphany. I said, well, you know what? I'm always waiting for someone to come be my friend. I wonder if everybody's like that. And then I thought, if everybody is, if I'm that person that'll go around and be friends, I'll have a lot of friends. So I went to my academy, and I put that into practice. Now you have to know in the context that this was in the early, do I have to say? Yeah. It was the early 1970s. Yeah, it's old. Who did that? Somebody else put it. Yes. And racial tensions were high in the United States. And in fact, there were states then, it wasn't until 1976 when the final state in the United States said it was a felony to be interracially married. My wife and I would have been felons up until we met after 76, so we're legal. But that's the connotation. Well, I was raised in a church that said Jesus loves the little children, all the children, you know that song, right? All the children of the world, red, brown, yellow, black, and white, all are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. And so I made friends with everybody. Everybody. Anybody who would be friendly with me, hey, we were friends. What set me off was the principal of our school called my father up and said he wanted to meet with my father, a doctor in the area, medical doctor in the area, and me. Well, when my father heard that, he said, "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Dad. I was a good little kid then. And I didn't do anything." And when we went in there, the principal said this. My father said, "What has Terry done?" He said, "Oh, nothing. He's doing well in school. He's a model student. We're very proud of him. But we just think you should know who he's making friends with." My father said, "Oh?" He said, "Yes. He's making friends with black students and Hispanic students." And they were worried about it.
Whoa.
And I'm sitting here stunned. I'm just 14 years old. Wait, yeah, I wasn't 14 years old. Young kid. And I was back in the generation where, well, you're a teacher, pastor, or somebody, you know, boys, they were close to God right there. And when I heard this man say this, I was stunned. My father replied to him, "I'm glad to hear that. I'm proud of my son. And if you ever talk to him again or bother me again, the next time we'll speak will be in court with my lawyer." And then they went underground at that point because they couldn't tolerate me having friends of a different race. When I saw that, something cracked in me. Because when you're young, you can't differentiate between certain things. So I thought, wait a minute, I've done nothing, I've lived right, I thought church was this, I thought that's what God was all about, all these things that I saw, and then when they started coming at me, and they came at me more and more because I wouldn't relent, I became more and more upset, more and more bitter, and I said, I don't believe in the church. I never became an atheist, but I was agnostic. I said, God's up there, I don't really like Him, He doesn't like me, forget it. And so it starts. So then, my white friends quit being friends with me. Once I didn't see the errors of my ways, and so I started hanging out more with my black friends because, well, they like me. And so I started living life. I started partying. I started drinking. I started smoking. I started smoking things you rolled up on your own, and hell, you know what that is, and different drugs. I started running, and because you conform to the world you're in, when I wasn't transforming myself, Jesus wasn't transforming me, I was conforming more and more to the world and to hard ways of living. I want to stop and say this to you. In your life, God doesn't just sit back and watch you. He isn't in the stadium and up in the special seats cheering you on, or, "Oh, bad hit, Terry, come on, you can do better. No, God is active in your life. And He puts certain things in your life. Signals to turn around, go back, do not enter. In the events of people's lives, and in the events of your own life. Of people that friends of mine that I saw, where once I had left the Adventist world and gone out and living in the world that I was in, finding out that one of the girls that I had gone to school with, who was an A student, who was involved with the spiritual programming, was caught in the web of pornography. I know it because I saw her in a magazine and I was shocked. Or another young lady who I bumped into on the streets as I was driving around one night, found out that she was out working late at night. She was a prostitute now. Or a friend of mine who had always wanted to go into business, an intelligent man, capable, started his own business. He sold drugs. And he did the cardinal rule that you don't when you're dealing drugs, you don't use them, but he did. And we saw him. My good friend and I went by and saw him. And he was depressed. And he said, nobody loves me, nobody cares. Remember the good times we used to have? Everybody's just out for money. I hate life, I hate life. And we said, look, man, we love you. He said, what? He said, yeah. Well, he said, hey, remember when we would go horseback riding in a part of LA, Griffith Park? And we said, yeah. He said, man, I miss those days. And we said, look, we'll come back this weekend and we'll go horseback riding. And goes, you guys would do that for me? I said, sure, man, we will. We never made it horseback riding because between the time we were supposed to see him and the time we left him, two people he knew took him for a ride before we could into an area of Los Angeles where all the train tracks go. They went on a walk in the middle of it, pulled out a sawed-off shotgun, and shot him point blank in the chest. All because he owed them $50. But I didn't listen. I kept going. I kept running. Funny how when we get focused on some things in life, we don't see the good that's around us. I don't know if you've ever have you heard of Denzel Washington? Yeah, did you? Have you ever seen the movie Training Day? If you have, or you don't want to confess to others that you have. In that movie where it's filmed, that's where I used to run around. The apartments in the part of town he lived in was called the Jungle, and that's where I'd regularly go and party and run around there, or everywhere from there to Beverly Hills. So I was in South Central. I was, they have a movie out straight out of Compton. I could put my picture on that because that's where I was. And there, everywhere from there to Beverly Hills with the music industry. And I kept running hard and fast. But it didn't make me happy because you see, when you're in a conformity mode, when you're trying to conform, and it doesn't have to be out there on the street, it doesn't have to be the type of life that I started to live, you can get in conformity mode in church. You can get in conformity mode in religious things, or in good things, but for wrong reasons. As we said what conformity was. But God is relentless. God comes after you. It was 2 weeks before my 21st birthday. In the United States, that's a big birthday because then you can go to bars legally. That's what I was looking for. And it was 2 weeks before Christmas over there. And my birthday's the 23rd of December. So this was...
Me too.
Beck, you're kidding! I knew it! God is so good at giving people like us as presents, right? No, anyway. It was late at night. So this is before the days of cell phone. Can you believe it? Anyway. And so I used to work 2 jobs because I like money. And one of my jobs I would do is drive around Los Angeles to hospitals and set effective cardiogram tests late at night. And so I had finished at 11:30 p.m. and I called a girl I was dating at the time, and she was going to help me wrap Christmas presents, because as my wife knows, I don't do that well. So I was in a brand new car, and there's a purpose I'm telling you this. I was in a brand new car that I bought off the showroom floor. And I bought it off the showroom floor so I could tell people I got it off the showroom floor. That's how it was. Anyway, gifts filled in the back. I had all my bling on. I had a wad of money in my pocket, you know. And I'm heading over there to her house. Now, I was at the last stop, and I called her up on the phone. And ladies, I'm sorry, sometimes guys, we have weird humor, and we think it's funny, and it sounds like a good idea. This is one of those moments. So I called up and I said, yes, is this, and I said her name, she goes, yes. She goes, who is this? And I said, this is San Gabriel Community Hospital Emergency Department, and we got your number out of Terry Swenson's wallet. And she goes, is he all right? And I said, no, he's been shot. Now, I don't know why I thought that was funny. You know, when I played this out in my mind, it was funny. But it wasn't. And the thing she said to me wasn't funny either. It was like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was stupid. Anyway, I'm headed over there to your house. I get to her house and park across the street. And I turn around to lock my car. It's about 11:30, quarter to midnight. And as I turned, she lived across the street, and then down a walkway to her front door, her parents' front door. I turned to lock the door of the car, and I hear footsteps running up behind me. But before I can turn around, boom, somebody hits me in the middle of my back, and I fly up on the, I'm trying to translate, roof, hood, top, what is it? No, not the bonnet, that's the front, the boot's the back, the thing in the middle, I thought, roof? Look at that. All right, my hands were up on the roof of the car. And then I heard, and I've been in this position before. I don't know if your police do that here, but the police had on numerous occasions had me on this, and I'm thinking, why are the police stopping me here at night now? And the guy over here says, there was two, I could kind of see them, and he says, freeze, keep your hands on the roof of the car. And I'm like, oh man, really? And then he says, give me the keys to your car. And living on the streets and having street sense, I knew it wasn't police. They don't ask that. And I knew whoever it wasn't just asking the keys for my car so they could hear the engine run or whatever, or take it or leave me. I knew they were probably going to rob me, or worse. But the thing that threw me off is they didn't have a weapon. So I shouldn't teach you how to rob people, but I mean, if you want to control people, you have a knife or you have a gun or something to terrorize them, so they go, yes, I'll do anything you say. So I knew in a moment this wasn't going to go down good, that probably these people were going to stuff me in the car and get rid of me somewhere else. And I did like this, and there were two guys shorter than me, and there was no weapon. I said, this is my moment. So he wasn't talking, he was. I pushed back on the car, and I turned to go at him, and I won't tell you what I said to him, because I'm a pastor now, but I turned to go at him, and as fast as I could go at him like that, he stepped back. His shirt was out, his t-shirt was tucked in, and he reached behind his back, and I thought, that's not a good sign. And he came back around, and he had a .38 caliber revolver, a 6.5 inch, I can't translate that, 6.5 inch barrel, like the police use, .38 caliber special bullet. And he took it, and he shot me. He shot me almost point blank. Blew me back against the car, and at that point his friend said, come on man, let's get out of here. They ran down the street, down the low hill, and they drove off. And I was back against the side of my car. And I was sliding down the side of my car. My ears were ringing. If you've ever about blacked out, it was like, being like that. And the lights were going in front of my eyes, and I was sliding down, I was dying. As I kind of went against my car and squatted, a voice said in my mind, and it's a voice, it was not my voice, it was a voice said in my mind, Terry, if you fall down here, you're dead. Get up. I was holding my side. As I'm getting fatter, it's easier to find the spot right there. I was holding my side, and I pushed back up on the side of the car, and somehow I stood up. And then the voice said to me, go get help. I walked across the street, down the driveway and the walk to the front door, and I managed to make it. I don't know how long it took me, and I leaned against the door. And then the voice said, ring the doorbell different. Because I have a certain way I would ring it when I come. And women always take a long time. I think you stand behind the door not to think you're too anxious for the guy. But the doorbell, and she answered the door. And I stood there and she goes, hey, what's wrong with you? And I said, I've been shot. And then I passed out. Boom. Now, do you remember what I called and said to her? This wife was building up to this. She's going, this guy's an idiot. It wasn't funny then, and it's not funny now. She told me later she was really upset. But when I fell, I rolled and my hand went off my side, and she saw that there was a spot of blood about that much. She went and got her family, her father, her mother, her sister, and somehow they got me to stand up again and walk into their entryway. And they said, what's wrong? And I said, I'm okay. Yeah, buddy. I said, I can make it, and then I tried to walk and I passed out again. When I came to, I didn't know where I was. I saw these bright lights. I was laying on something hard, and I hurt very badly. Before I was in shock. When shock comes off, shock is a good thing. Coming off of shock is not a good thing. And I was in intense agony. I cannot describe to you the pain I was going through. And I came to it, and I was like, what's going on? I'm hurting. And somebody turns around, hey, he's alive. And they all turned around. All these people, I'm laying there, and all these heads looked down at me, and they're like talking all at once. Who did it? What happened? All this stuff. And I was just like in pain. And I remember crying out. I didn't cry for my mom. Usually you call for mom. I called for my dad. Well, maybe because it was a doctor. I don't know. I was calling, Dad, I want my dad. And all of a sudden my dad leaned over from this way, and I remember shocked it was my father because I wasn't living at home. I tried to stay away from home the life I was living. And somehow my father was there. I found out later that when he was notified, he drove what normally takes an hour and a half, and he made it in 30 minutes. And he was there. And he said, son, it's going to be okay. They're going to help you. And I remember somebody came in with a white coat. And he said, I'm going to give you something for pain. And I asked him, what is it? Why would I ask him what is it? And he said, it's morphine. He said, but he gave me morphine, but it's just like, it's morphine. The next thing I know, I wake up. I've been in a coma. Let me tell you what had happened at this point. I had been shot. The bullet went through my stomach, my liver, my spleen, tumbled around and ripped up my intestines, blew through my vena cava where it branches above the legs going back to the heart, so it's a vein about, your major vein, blew it in half, and the bullet stopped on my spine, just like that, just stopped. If you know anything about bullets and logistics, that thing should have cut through me like a knife through hot butter and leave a hole out of my back at least that big. That's the first miracle that happened. I was in surgery for 14 and a half hours. I was in a coma for 3.5 days. But I just kept it. I went from the emergency room to just coming up, and I woke up, and I was in this room. And there was monitors and tubes all in me, and the sheet was laid back, and there was somebody moaning over there, And somebody was over here, and there was like something on my side I could see. I found out later, well, anyway, it was a colostomy. It was part of meat hanging out there. And I came to, and this is something, if you're a health professional, if you're a nurse, where's Brennan? Brennan never did this. I asked, where am I? What happened? And the nurse said, you're in Daniel Freeman Hospital, intensive care unit, and you've been shot. And then she covered me with the thing and walked off. And I'm like, while I was on the operating table, you remember I told you that there was only that much blood on my shirt. It's because my doctor, Dr. Uriu, when I was able to understand, and he came in to talk to me, he said, Terry, I'm an atheist. Okay. Terry, I'm an atheist. I do not believe in miracles. I do not believe in God. He said, but when I open you up, first of all, the bullet not going through. He said, but when I open you up, he said, and this is what he did. He goes, I lifted out a blood clot out of you that big. Now that blood clot had formed and pinched off your vena cava, and that's why you did not bleed to death before you ever got here. He said, I don't know how you walked from how you moved and did all that. He said, but the other thing, there's no way that a blood clot that big would form instantaneously to keep you from dying. He said, I do not believe in miracles, but I do not know what else to call what happened. When he lifted that out of me, I lost the equivalent of 1.5 times my volume of blood. So I bled out, emptied out, filled back up, bled out, and filled back up. They never were able to join the vena cava together again. They just sealed out the ends. So they thought I would die from either peritonitis, blood poisoning, or I would die from throat blood clot, or lose my legs. I didn't die. I didn't get a blood clot, and these are my legs. Peripheral veins to the over. As I sat recovering in that hospital, and I was in the hospital in intensive care for weeks, and then when I got out into a ward where people could see me, people came to me from my past, from school, from church, people that I had written off, people that I thought would never talk to me again in my life. They came and they prayed and they came to see me. So many people came that I had to ask the doctors, please, no more people for a while. I'm exhausted. And as I lay in that bed day after day, week after week, not able to move, fearful, never was with God, I couldn't get over the fact, why did this happen? And I understood something that transformed me slowly. My life was very slowly. And it's still transforming me to this day. That I had cursed God. I'm cutting out a lot of story. I cursed God purposely. I tried to figure out how to blaspheme His name because I hated Him so much. I was so bitter against the world, the church, and people, and the fallacies of what they lived, and all the baloney and all the stories that I thought they had taught me. But yet, an atheist preaches to me that a miracle happened, and I know what happened with that bullet. And there's no way I should have lived or ever got up from sliding down that car. How did I walk over? And all of these things, time after time, how did that happen? How did it happen? Why are these people coming to me? What's going on? And I had to come to the conclusion in my life that it was God. I didn't earn it. I did everything to make Him not love me. And it didn't matter. Jesus just blew past all of that to come and save me. I want to tell my story. I want to tell people this. I don't say to glorify what I did, and I've left out much. Number one, it took years away from my life. Years I'll never get back. Number two, there's people that looked at me and thought, oh, Terry's cool, and they wanted to conform their life to how I live. And I know some of them are dead, and I made it back, and I have to. They went into that lifestyle and they never came out of it, but I did. So that haunts me a lot. And the other thing is this, that sin, God forgives you. God changes your life. But do you have like climbing walls? The climbing walls? You know those little things they put on the climbing walls? It's like every sin that you succumb to, and the more you do, it's like Satan sticks those things on you. And God forgives you, but he's got a lot of grass to come at you and get at you and throw up in your face your past. But God will change that. But sin costs. You don't want to go there. But let me tell you something. There's times in your life when the Bible isn't enough. There's times in your life when the written words and the promises that are in there can't sustain you. There's times in your life when all the theology and all the beliefs and all the doctrines and all the prophetic charts won't help you at all. You need God with skin on. What do I mean by that? You need the reality of God in your life. And all of us will walk through in some point, maybe not as dramatic as a bullet in the stomach. I pray that you don't have to go through that one. But it might be cancer, it might be the loss of a loved one. We all go through the dark nights of the soul, just like Jesus Christ did at Gethsemane. He told us, you're going to go through what I did. There'll come times when you need God, the reality of God. And I'm here to tell you that he will be there. He will be there. He will manifest himself in your life in a way that you can say it could be nothing else but the reality of God. He will do it through people, and that's the important things of church and each other. He comes into us, he says, who can I incarnate in? By the way, do you know what the word incarnate means? Carne is Latin for meat. So it's God in meat. And we're meat. God in us. Paul says, God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, and now Christ is in us and calls us to reconcile the world. We're Jesus. When he needs to come, when someone needs a hug, when someone needs a word, like those people that came and just came and poured into me, they were Jesus. And I can tell you more and more times when he would come into my life, God will hunt you down. Jesus will never let you go until you draw your last breath. And if you have people in your life that looks like me, that if anybody should be written off, it was me. I'm here to tell you, until they draw their last breath, Jesus Christ will be after them to draw him into his heart and his kingdom. And he will use you to do it too. The text is, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your spirit in Jesus Christ. Let me find it for you. I want to read a couple of texts, and then I'll be done. Romans 12:2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. 2 Corinthians 3:18. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. In Ephesians 4:13. This will continue until we all come to such unity in our faith and knowledge of God's Son, that we will be mature in the Lord, measuring up to the full and complete standard of Christ. That does not mean you'll be perfectly sinless. That means you will be a perfectly loving person. Because love is perfection when it comes to Christ. You are transformative. Don't be conformative. I had a little toy. I end with this. I had a little toy. I wanted to go online and see if I have a picture, but I didn't get a chance to do it. It was called Mattel. I remember Mattel Toy Company made it, and I wanted it desperately, and I got it for Christmas. You know, back the whole birthday, Christmas thing, you want one gift, one big one, or two little ones? Yeah. And I wanted this. It was a vacuum form. Okay, nobody saw that. It was a vacuum form. And what it was is this little machine, and, I don't know how my generation lived the stuff we got for toys. So what this thing was, is it was a little machine about this big, and you have pieces, thin wafers of plastic that you would slide into it. You lift this thing up, slide the plastic into it, and you have these metal forms, like it could be a car or a plane or something like that. And this thing would superheat. I mean, you'd fry eggs on this thing. It would superheat, and then you would put it at when the light would come on. You put the plastic over it. You push a button, and air would be suctioned out of it like that, and the plastic would melt over the form. And then when you lift it out and let it cool, you had your little toy to play with. Who would give a child that? But that's what being conformed is. You being made in God's image. You being wired, knit together from your womb by God. All your proclivities, all my weirdness of loving trivial facts that nobody could really care about, but it sticks in my brain, or the weird things you eat, or how you are to people. That's God made you that way. Hold Him accountable. He knit you together. But something happens. He wants you to be transformed, but the world forces you, puts the heat on, presses you in to become something that you're not. But what Christ does is He transforms you by His love, by His presence, by His example. And then you change, not to earn that, not to earn salvation, not to earn God's love, but because of it. Because by beholding, you become changed. The rather kingdom of Christ is that God will work the rest of your life to draw you to be more and more like Him. And then that's going to change the world. So, since I make you do things in prayer you don't normally do, how about holding the hand of the person next to you? Yeah, aren't you sad on one? Okay, everybody, nobody without a hand. Germaphobes will pray, you'll be saved. All right. Anybody without a hand? See, because this is church.
Willie.
Where's Willie? Who's Willie?
You know.
Are you Willie? Who's Willie? Stumbling. Why did they laugh at you, Willie?
Oh, no idea.
Anyway, this is what church is. So too often we come into church disconnected, and we leave disconnected. And Christ says, remember, He's the cornerstone. We're the stones, living stones. There's an interesting thing that happens, and they showed me it at Loma. I get to know all kind of biological things at Loma. And they showed me this, that your heartbeat, your heart is beating. That's why you're here and alive. But they can take a heart cell and put it in what do they call those? Petri dishes. Yeah. And it'll be beating there. Beat, 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 beat. And they can take somebody else's heart cell and put it in their living one, and it'll be beating at a different beat. But when they put the cells together so they touch, you know what happens? They synchronize. And actually, if we held our hands long enough, you could feel the heartbeat in the other person's hand. Eventually, all of our hearts would synchronize. That's the church. When we link to Jesus Christ and with each other, we change things. It's about loving. It's about following. It's about caring. And if you do that, North Perth Church, you will be transformative in your lives, in your family's life, and in this neighborhood. Let me pray for you. Lord, as we're linked together, may we realize it's not just this church, it's around the world, all the people that know you and love you. And Father, there's some of us that have been taught the wrong thing about you. And Jesus, you too. That we think that we have to earn your love. That we have to earn salvation on our own. That we have to perfect ourselves. And we have to do all these things that you never called us to. You just said, let us open up and receive your love. And you'll do the rest. That you are the author and finisher of our faith. That you are the transformer of our life. That you, Holy Spirit, come in and change things around. And all we have to do is say yes. And if we say no, you honor it. But you never quit coming after us. May everyone here say yes. May everyone here just give you a chance to live in them and live through them and transform this place into the rather kingdom of your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Thanks, Terry. It's been a really good weekend. I know that I've definitely been challenged, touched, blessed by what we've shared, and I hope that everyone else has. Really great turnout tonight, guys, so thank you. Feel free to hang around a bit longer, eat up the food. I don't really want to take it home as much as my brother would devour it. With your prayer points, I think there were some post notes floating around. Our youth group have got a prayer list, so we'll be adding these points to our prayer list. If there's anything that you would like covered in prayer, jot it down and leave it stuck on the table or a wall. I'll collect them later. And we'll be keeping you in our prayers. It's just something that we like to do, and then we come back to and we check off to see what prayers were answered and how they were answered, and it encourages us. So hopefully that's a way that we can support our church as well. Thank you for coming. Please eat and mingle for a little bit longer, and then when it gets too late, we'll kick you out.
Amen.